Hi, it's me. I wanted to make a video. I touched base the other day about in the plus size tag about my whole experience with Disney World and being overweight. And I was thinking, maybe I should do a video on this because when I was researching everything about our trip, I wasn't able to find a whole lot of information for people who are 400 plus pounds. So I was like, you know what, maybe I should do a video, and that way, if somebody else is looking for the information, that they may be able to, I may be able to provide a little bit of insight into some of the different things that we experienced on our journey to Florida. So we are in Canada, on the very east coast, and when we were going to take a bus tour down to Orlando, because I was so paranoid about the plane. It's been a long time. Well, prior to that, it had been quite a long time since I had been on a plane, and I had gained some weight. So I was really worried about the whole seat situation because the time I was on it before this, I barely fit in the seat at that time, and there was three of us in the row, and it was very uncomfortable. So I was really worried about that. So I wanted to make sure to do something different. So we were going to take the bus, but it was going to be like 30 hours on the bus each way. And then I found out they were doing direct flights from the airport just down the street from us. So we decided, okay, you know what? Let's do that instead because it's, a direct flight. So we could always just book the seat in the middle. But then I was, thinking, I don't really want to spend the extra $500 if I don't have to. And I mean, understandably, $500, that's a lot of money. That was our tickets to Disney World. That was, other things that money we could have spent elsewhere. So we went to, I called the airport. Actually, I think I went into the airport, but then I ended up calling the airport. And they basically were saying, the back of the plane, so this is a good tidbit, is the back of the plane doesn't book as fast. So they suggested me to book the very back of the plane. So we got the last available row. There was a row behind us, but that was more or less a storage facility, I guess they were using it for, to put their bags and stuff on, the actual attendants. So even if worst case scenario, I'm sure we could have sat one of those seats. But I'm sure that's not like that on every flight. But they did tell us the last rows on the plane don't go as fast as the closer rows. And where our plane was only, I think, half booked at that time when I booked it, we only booked the trip about a week before we went. So, because like I said, I was so unsure what I was doing because I didn't know what I should do about the plane situation. So we booked it. The plane was either half to three quarters booked. I don't remember, or maybe it was 2/3. It was, anyways, it was half or over, but it wasn't full. So we booked our seats. I asked her, I said, should I pay extra for the one in the middle? I said, I don't really have the money, but if you think I really should, then I will. And she's like, well, to be quite honest, she's like, you can to, make sure that your seat is going to be there, but you don't necessarily have to. So what I ended up doing, because with the company that we flew with WestJet, is you buy your ticket, but you don't get to reserve your actual seats when you buy your ticket. The price doesn't include the reserved seating until 24 hours before your flight leaves. So if you want to reserve your seat, you do have to pay extra, which I think was $20 per seat per way. So it would have been $80 for us to book our seats. So I'm like, you know what? $80 is way cheaper than $500. So we booked our seats the day we actually booked the actual tickets. So we paid the extra, and we got the window, and we got the aisle seats. Now, the one in the middle was empty, and of course, I was paranoid. Like, what if somebody, the flight's full? What if somebody needs to book the seat? But she did reassure me that, chances were pretty slim because, I mean, the airport we flew out of was a very small airport. And although the flight was fairly full, I think I counted there was at least 10 to 15 empty seats in the flight each way. Actually, there was more empty seats on the way back than there was on the way there. So we were good. I mean, I was very worried. I was worried on our way there, right until we actually got on the plane. And I was worried, well, actually, until after we got situated on the plane and there was nobody else came on, then I was okay. And then I was worried again when we were coming back. But I wasn't worried after we got on the plane because I actually asked them at the front counter when you're boarding the plane, did anybody book the seat in between us? And they said no. Luckily, like I said, with the flight we were on, where it was a direct flight, we didn't have to worry about switching. We didn't have to do any of that. And also, the seats behind us were empty. Like I said, they were using them for bags, but if we had have needed the seat, they would have offered it to us. So we were kind of lucky that way, and it's good to know because if we do decide to go again in another year or two, then that option's always there. As for the theme parks, we did notice, okay, the shuttle that we took, we were staying at the Clarion Inn on Palm Parkway. So, pardon me. So we did notice that the shuttle was definitely not comfortable for us. We definitely wouldn't be doing that again because they had this small, basically a minivan, and they shoved as many people into it as they could to go from the hotel to the theme park. And because it was free service provided by the hotel, we ended up taking the public transit, which was just easier. And the shuttle service that we had, it wasn't reliable anyways. So we ended up taking the public transit. We took the transit. We got there before the people actually from the hotel. So that's kind of saying something. And the theme parks, like I said, a lot of the rides, we were looking into it, and we didn't actually go to Orlando, or we did go to Orlando, but we didn't actually go to Universal Studios because I had already heard so much about how so many of the rides were not, fat friendly. So we didn't go there. So I can't really give you information on that. There is a lot of videos on YouTube that you can look into that and see if they would allow for your size to really kind of fit on the rides. Apparently they do have like the seats in the very front of the rides, so that way you can kind of sit in them, see if you're comfortable before actually standing in the line, which is great because you don't want to do that. SeaWorld was the same way with their two big roller coasters. You could try to sit in the seats before you actually went on the rides, and we did not fit in those. There was an Antarctica ride that I actually would have really enjoyed going on. The weight limit, I think, was 300 and something pounds. Maybe it was like 300-ish pounds, so we couldn't go on that. Basically, we didn't go on any rides in SeaWorld. We thankfully got our tickets extremely cheap because a lot of the exhibits were down, and the rides we couldn't go on. We just basically watched a couple of the shows and walked around, took some pictures. That was pretty much it. Learned about sea turtles. So we thankfully got our tickets really cheap through the actual airline that we got our stuff through. It was less than half price, so it wasn't a huge deal. And then we went to Walt Disney World. We went to Hollywood Studios and we went to Magic Kingdom. We didn't go to the other ones, but I have heard positive things about them as well with the size of the rides. Now, at Magic Kingdom, we went to Space Mountain. And again, as I had said in the previous video, I fit, but not by much. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to go on there if I was another 40, 20, 30, 40 pounds because I probably wouldn't have fit. But I fit, and I got out of it without an issue. So anybody who is maybe shorter and is a little wider than me might not fit, but I am 434 pounds last time I got weighed, which was about 3 weeks ago. So I did fit, but not by much. And I highly recommend, if you're going on it, because it is dark, taking your glasses off, because I was on the ride and mine, they're like plasticky. You can kind of see the way the nose piece is, and they nearly came off. I was trying to hold on to my glasses and hold on to the ride, and it was just a mess. So that worked. And then I also went to Splash Mountain, and that was fine. We had no issues fitting on Splash Mountain at all. We each sat in our own spot, though. We didn't like, because you usually could sit two together, but we each had our own spot. And so there was a lot of room on either side. So you could kind of sit on one side or on the other. We just sat in the middle because it was just, a little easier that way, especially with being bigger people. Um, so what else did we go on at Magic Kingdom? I know we had our fast passes for 3 things, and I can't think of what the third thing was. But we did go on the train that went around. That worked fine. We went on the the Country Bear Jamboree. We went and sat down there. I found a lot of the theaters were very tight. I'm not gonna lie. The seats were, and some of them were the same size as a normal theater, but in some were just a lot narrower. So it was like kind of sitting on the edge of the seat for some of them. I don't remember how County Bears Jamboree was or Country Bears Jamboree was, but I did find it all the theaters a little snug. Um, so at Magic Kingdom, oh yeah, and the other thing we fast passed was to meet Mickey Mouse. So I guess it wasn't really a ride. But we went on the Stitch ride, that was fine. A Monsters Inc. ride, that was fine. Or show, I guess it was. We didn't go on a lot of rides, but I mean, it's a lot of walking at the Magic Kingdom. If anybody's been there, you know that. So you are on your feet a lot. So definitely, especially being a bigger girl, I had to wear very good sneakers, and even by 5 hours into it, my feet were killing me. Hollywood Studios was great. We enjoyed Hollywood Studios the best, actually, out of everything. We went on Tower of Terror a couple times, and you know what? The seats there were fine. Bigger girl didn't bother me at all. The seatbelts are super long. Um, that was great. We went on Star Tours. Now, the actual theater seats, again, were very narrow, but the ride itself, the seatbelts are very long, so it wasn't an issue. Well, it was a little hard finding the actual hook for the seatbelt, but other than that, it was no issues. And we went on a few shows. We went to the Frozen show and the Little Mermaid, the Muppets 3D. So all those, again, theater areas. The Frozen one was a little uncomfortable. The Mermaid one was uncomfortable. And the Muppet one wasn't too bad. But again, it is a little bit newer, I think. So the seats were set up a little better. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I found, Hollywood Studios was definitely very accommodating. And then we went to go see Beauty and the Beast, and it was bench seats. So again, even better because you don't have to worry about, being squished against the sides. So that was pretty much our experience. I honestly think, Disney World, it's set up extremely good for plus size people. If you're debating about going to Disney World and you don't know if you're going to fit on the rides, definitely recommend going. It's very fat friendly. I mean, there's no other way to really put it. I mean, you can be smaller and fit on the rides, or you can be bigger. And I was really worried about not being able to go on any of the rides because, I didn't want to spend $600 or whatever it was we spent to go to Disney World and not be able to go on any rides. I wouldn't have gone at that point. So, but no, it was definitely worth it, worth the money. And like I said, if you're thinking about going, I highly recommend it. I give it my 2 plus size thumbs up. Have a great day, guys. Bye.